Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Nuffs channel. In this video we're going to look at our NRL Fantasy side as we get ready for round one. So we've got the team list out for the Vegas games. I did go through them in a bit of detail in the SuperCoach video if you wanted to go have a look at that. But essentially I don't think there was any major surprises. This was the first game, I don't know why I was scrolling back. But I guess the key sort of talking points, Ben Trbojevic, as expected, playing on that edge. So I think, he'll be locked into the centres for most teams, for sure. For the Rabbitohs, probably the most interesting point is Jacob Gagai getting the spot on the wing. Probably only for 1 week, so I guess it's a question of whether you want to just try and get, one little cash grab. Maybe on a narrower field in Vegas, it's not the smartest option. Considering there's probably not going to be a lot of, sort of attacking side to side play given the narrower field. But I may be wrong with that too. It may sort of just mean it ends up being more bunched in the middle, and then the space naturally sort of is created on that edge. But I guess from the Roosters and the Broncos, probably I think the most interesting is the second row for the Roosters. So Wong and Tupanua starting, so that might create a bit of opportunity in our Supercoach teams. With Nat Butcher on the bench who can play in the middle, there might be big minutes for both of those guys. And for the Broncos, Brandon Piakura is named to start, so I think we can lock him into our teams. And Xavier Willison getting the spot on the bench. So if you like him with the dual position at about 260, you could. I guess also Dane Mariner getting the start over Corey Oates. And Jesse Arthur's on the other wing. So I know he's another cheap dual position option that may take some people's interest. I'd guess also, I haven't looked at him too closely, but maybe Cobbo's now dual position. Let's have a bit of a look. Yeah, so you imagine he'd get dual position. So if you're looking at Cobbo, you could get him in the centres. But I guess if we have a look at the team with how it currently sits, so Cam Murray we can safely lock into the team. I've still got Harry Grant at hooker, Cotter and Elliott. That's I think they're fine until we confirm they're in the team for next week. Piakora's starting, so I'm locking him in. Ben Trbojevic, I'm locking him in. I had Xavier Wilson down on the bench, but he may sort of creep up into the little loophole spot perhaps. I don't know if that's the way we're going, or if we're going to target the Raiders 5/8, whether that's Strange or Weeks. But I guess for the rest of the team, we can just quickly go through it. Grant I think is an obvious choice. Cotter and Elliott we've talked about before, both sort of playing the 13 role. Particularly Cotter at the start of the year plays big minutes. So the Cowboys don't have a bye until Origin. So I think the plan is to, keep him to Origin. I think his price will increase a bit, and then we'll flip him at Origin time, because usually after Origin, and he usually plays massive minutes in Origin, his tail end of the season tails off, to use the phrase. But Adam Elliott, perhaps a little bit of value there, but imagine he'll play big minutes in the 13 at the Knights. Jamin Salmon, if he gets named at 13 for the Dogs, he is locked into that other edge spot. We'll obviously get the dual position, which is handy as well. Hines and Cleary, if we can afford them, we'll keep them. But I guess one thing here, we sort of had them locked in for the captain and vice captain, but with the sort of different round one, the captain and vice captain will lock out before the Vegas games. So what I'm thinking is we'll probably go the VC on Murray. and then we've got to just pick a captain that we're happy to lock in. And while I sort of think that Hines will potentially score more points, just that little hamstring that he's got, he should be right to start. But I think, I'm more confident that I want Cleary if I have to have one. So if I have to chop Hines because we need money elsewhere, um, I think I'm happy with that decision because I think with Trindle around, he will dip a bit, not a lot, not enough that I'm willing to, sort of sacrifice him for another half. Um, but I think, just because of the weird round one, I'm just going to make that little change and, sort of lock Murray in with one of the sort of locked in captain, vice captain slots. Ben Travojevic, we're locking in. I brought in Ewan Aitken just as another sort of centre eligible player starting in the second row. Um, you know, Tom Gilbert being out for the season might actually help Aitken. Probably they'll move Kenny Bromwich, I think, to lock, which, will probably just make Aitken's competition for that spot even less. It's probably between him and Lemuelu. And if Bennett's been given him the start in the trials, you would imagine that they're looking at Aiken starting there. And then on the bench, Pappenhausen and Kinney have been there for a little bit, but Kane Bradley looks like he's primed to start on that edge for the Storm. So wing, fullback, and edge would be a pretty cool combo to have. But yeah, if we can get 250k starting second rower in our wing fullback slot, you'd be mad not to get on that. On the bench, I know a few people have gone cold on Curran, but he was suffering a bit of a virus apparently, so they did reduce his minutes in that trial. Um, so I still have faith, and I'm hoping that one bad performance scaring people off could work to my advantage by holding on to him. Drew Hutchinson, looked good. I think Burton did a bit more kicking last week. But I think his defence is good enough that he'll lock down that spot. And his price is generally based on the fact that he's been a bench utility type player a lot of his time. So if he can get a permanent starting spot, he'll make some money. Sam Hughes looked really good. Um, you know, it, with Curran coming off the bench, people might say, well, he's not going to get a lot of minutes, but I think he's one of those players that'll grow into the season. So he's just going to be a slow burn, and we can cop that. But I think he'll definitely be in the 17 every week. So that cash and minutes will slowly increase. I've also got Alex Seyfarth as a loophole option on the bench. He should play 13 for the Tigers when their team eventually gets named in round two. And I'm willing to sort of make that bet at 360k. We can always, find other options at that price if need be. And then the bench, I've tried to sort of save a bit of money. Weeks, it'll be Weeks or Strange. Ideally, it'll be Strange. And then the question is, do we plug Strange into our centres? Do we really need Aitken at 550k if we can get, a starting player for 300k cheaper? And that's just, I guess, the contingency in place at the moment. But ideally, for both Supercoach and Fantasy, I'm absolutely hoping that Strange will get the start, particularly now that he's only copped a fine for his tackle in the trial match. Yeah, let's hope that it all works our way. I've got Kyle Flanagan there, so the way I've structured it up is that Weeks plays first, so we'll see how he goes, or Strange as the case may be, and if they don't set it on fire, which they may not against the Knights in Newcastle, we'll just plop Flanagan up into that last interchange spot, and we'll cop his score. He's not going to sort of be, um, equal share with Ben Hunt in terms of, the kick meters and sort of the try assists and stuff, but he is good enough that they can go to him. as a different option. And yeah, I think as they build into the season, the Dragons could potentially improve. You can see the difference from trial week 1 to the trial against the Tigers in week 2. Blake Taff I've still got, so probably one that I'm not as keen on holding. I can definitely see a world where he becomes Jack Bostock, saving a 20k. Um, but I guess being a Dogs fan and someone who thinks, Taff can do a job for us this year, I know he didn't set it a lot in the trials, but, I think he could be one of those players that really, goes off confidence. When he's in form, he plays well. Um, some people might say, well, he's not really a fantasy scorer even when he's playing well, and that's a fair point too. So I haven't definitely not set on this, but he'll do for the time being. I guess it's one of those things. If we sort of plan for the worst, i.e., Bostock somehow misses out, well, we know that we've still got cover in the wing fullback. And Xavier Willison, now he's in the 17. I think the dual position just gives him the edge um, over the likes of McKaylee, Liam Henry, even Viliami Fafita, who's a little bit cheaper, 230. I just think the dual flexibility will be really handy with Wilson, and he's one of those players that does have the ability to do some good things throughout the season. So again, being a bench middle, we're not expecting massive cash gen off the bat, but just someone who can plug gaps when needed and do a job for us as required. So, so that's how the team's lined up at the moment. Um, as I said, there is some options around the centre spot. Obviously, not having centre cover is a bit of an issue. Probably also not having hooker cover is a fair issue. But I guess if one of the Parramatta guys does get an 80-minute gig, we'll definitely bring them into the equation somewhere. Um, if we just go to the filters, no, wrong filters, Eels, hooker. So, even if it's Lussick at 460k, we can probably, it might be Aiken goes out, or, it might be Curran, just a straight swap. Um, yeah, something like that. We'll find a way to bring them in for sure if they do get the 80-minute gig. As I said, it could even be that we chop up Nico Hines and bring in, maybe get rid of Taff and Flanagan and upgrade a couple of those positions on the bench also. It is possible, but I guess if we can keep Hines, we absolutely will. Um, in terms of the centres, so even if I get rid of Aiken and assume everything else sort of goes the way it goes, what we could do, like I said, I'm okay with Bostock as an option. So we'll bring him in as our centre wing fullback cover. Um, and then go by all teams. That's because it's still name. So, at this price we can bring in, Timoko, Best, Lomax perhaps. But the interesting one, he's not currently in the centres, but at 619, which is exactly what we've got, we could get a bit of RTS in the centres. So, once he gets named in the centres for round 1, he'd get that flexibility. And yeah, he's one that could slot in there. So, that would be very exciting, I think, to have him. I think if we could, we'd have him over the likes of, these guys. I've had the hammer there at different points, but not 100% convinced. I just think Aiken might have a little bit more value um, than those other sort of options. So I might just leave it as is with Taff out of the team. 4 Bulldogs is enough, let's be honest. Um, and yeah, so that's how the team's shaping up. Obviously, there's only so much we can do now. We've just got to sit and wait another week. So probably the weirdest um, uh, team list Tuesday. That's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't think of what we were doing here. And yeah, so I guess as quickly as well, we'll go through the sports deck team. I still haven't quite worked out how to fit this in with the rest of the schedule, or if I just bin this. So, obviously, feel free to get in the comments with your thoughts on whether we sort of continue down this road or not. But looks like we've got Pierre Cora, we've got Ben Travojevic, we've got Tom Travojevic in this team as well. Um, yeah, so Bostock in the centres. Hopefully he'll become dual position. I don't really know how Sports Deck works with that, whether it's more NRL Fantasy where they do update before round one, or I guess Supercoach did update technically, the likes of Bradley getting dual position and stuff, so maybe that's just been overlooked. I don't know. But yeah, so I think this team's pretty fine too, so no need to stress too much about that at this point. But yeah, so obviously, if you've got any questions, comments, or thoughts on the fantasy team coming into the season, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy the NRL fantasy stuff, even remember to give video a like, subscribe for all the fantasy content we've got on this channel, and other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.